Are you thinking of moving to Portland, Oregon, but just need someone to be honest with you and tell it like it is? Well, if you stick around for this video, I'll be giving you the 8 things that you are gonna have to put up with if you live here in Portland, whether you like it or not. And if you stick around till the very end, I'll give you a bonus reason. Don't worry, it's not that bad. It's just things that I wish I knew before I moved here, and just things that I gradually picked up on as I lived here over time. Well, I don't want to keep you waiting, so let's go. This video isn't meant to scare you away, but if that happens, then so be it. I just want you to know the honest truth and maybe even clear up some common misconceptions about Portland. But honestly, I'd rather have you know up front that this isn't gonna work out for you rather than coming to me after a year and saying, Matt, I don't like it here, wah. That said, my team and I have dedicated ourselves to helping people just like you with navigating the challenges of moving up here to Portland, Oregon, and buying their dream home. So if you're planning to move up here in the near or distant future, we would absolutely welcome your call, text, or email. First step is for you to reach out to us, so don't be shy. You can find all our contact info in the description or down in the comments below. We look forward to hearing from you. With that said, let's dive right in. All right, the first thing is the weather. Obviously, you've probably heard things about the Portland weather up here. Maybe you've heard that it rains a lot here, which is true, kind of, because there's other places in the country that get actually way more rainfall in terms of volume, but there are approximately 150 to 160 rainy days per year on average. On those 150 days, is it constantly raining? No, actually rarely not. So maybe it just rains in the morning while you're still asleep, and then when you wake up, it's overcast or even sunny out for the rest of the day. Very rarely does it even rain all day. Most of the time, you'll just get an occasional drizzle throughout the day, and then at some point it'll just stop and you'll forget that it even rained. Here's why it is a good thing that we get so much rain up here in Portland though, and that is the nature and the vegetation. There are so many different types of trees in and out of the city here. We're surrounded by vast amounts of wilderness that just frankly need to be watered throughout the year, and in the spring and summertime you see exactly why it's worth it. The flowers start to bloom, the air starts to smell nice and fresh, it even smells like flowers. But that leads me into my second thing that you need to be aware of. If you're susceptible to allergies, you might have a rough time here in the early summer months. There's a website called pollen.com which rates the presence of airborne pollen on a 0 to 12 scale, and Portland received an alarming 9.1 on that scale. Most grasses reach peak pollination in May and June. So if you're one of the 10 to 30% of people out there that suffer from dry and watery eyes and maybe runny noses from those little bits of pollen floating around in the air, you're gonna probably want to stock up on some Claritin or Zyrtec or whatever that stuff's called throughout the spring and the early summer months. I have some close friends and family members that put up with the allergies every year but still find it worth it here, so it's gonna be up to you to decide. The next thing that you need to know about Portland is that the traffic is getting worse here. It's not quite as bad as somewhere like New York City or Los Angeles or the Bay Area, but it's definitely getting bad, and there are certain routes that are worse than others at different times of the day. For example, if you have to commute down I-84 to the west and pass over the river and head in towards Beaverton on the west side of town, then you are definitely going to have to deal with traffic going both ways. There's certain main streets that get clogged up in the mornings if you have to head towards the direction of downtown. But like I said, if you're coming from one of those other super big cities, the traffic might not even phase you here. I personally moved here from LA, and one of the main reasons why I left LA was because the traffic was just abysmal. When I got here, yeah, sure, there's a little bit of traffic, but it is nothing compared to what I was dealing with before. But hey, people are always moving up here, and gradually over time, the traffic just does get worse, I'm not gonna lie. It's worse now than when I first moved here. I'm not sure what's gonna happen in another 5 to 10 years. I want you to move here, but not too many of you. I'm just kidding. Come on, everyone come. Come on, move. The next thing you should be aware of, it is relatively expensive here in Portland. Real estate isn't cheap, groceries aren't cheap, rent's not cheap, going out to eat isn't cheap. Portland is about 17% higher than the national average when it comes to cost of living. However, if you're like most people moving here from a major city like San Francisco or Los Angeles or Washington, D.C. or New York City or Seattle, you're going to find that Portland has a much lower cost of living actually. So I have some other videos on the channel talking more specifically about the cost of living from some of those places I just mentioned. But overall, it just depends. If you're coming from a smaller city such as Boise, Idaho, or Salt Lake City, or even Miami, you will find the cost of living in Portland to be anywhere from a little bit to quite a bit higher. Here's another issue that is very real. There's a lot of homeless people here. It's definitely sad for sure. If you look at the statistic of how many homeless people per 1,000 people in Portland, we're actually very high on that list in the US. With about 5.86 homeless people per 1,000 in Portland, it's definitely noticeable. However, I think it's a much bigger issue than just Portland. I mean, if you live in any big city, there are going to be places where there's a lot of homeless people. That's just a fact. I don't know the answer to how to solve this problem. It's something that is definitely a real issue everywhere, especially here in Portland. But here's one reason why it's especially noticeable in Portland. A lot of the homeless populations tend to congregate on main thoroughfares. So these are the main streets that everyone drives on to get from one side of the town to the other. It kind of gives the impression that the issue might be worse than it is. I'm not trying to make light of it, but there are only about half the amount of beds that we need. They're gonna go wherever they can go, and that happens to be on many of the main streets here in Portland on the inner side of town. But just to compare to some of the other bigger cities in the United States, the city with the absolute highest amount of homeless people per 1,000 is Washington, D.C. with 10.8. Boston has 9.22, San Francisco has 8.48, New York City 7.6, Seattle 4.54. So yeah, I mean, to me, it's a tragedy that anybody has to live without a home. So I wish I could wave a magic wand and make that entire problem go away, but hey, it's a problem wherever you live, and here in Portland, it's also a very real problem. So there you go. Something else that you should know about before you move here is if you are not a fan of hiking or the great outdoors, then you might not like it as much here, because that's what a lot of people like to do here for fun. You can definitely find other things here to do within the city, don't get me wrong. But all I'm just trying to say is maybe, I don't know, if you do like to hike, then I don't know, it's a good place to live. But if you don't like to hike, just maybe keep that to yourself, okay? I'm just kidding, we don't judge here. The other thing that is definitely a downfall, for me at least, and it might be for you if you like professional sports, and that's just the lack of professional sports teams. I've talked about this in a few of my other videos, but you know, we don't have a Major League Baseball team, we don't have a Major League Football team, we don't have a National Hockey team, but we do have the Portland Trail Blazers. That's a team that this city is extremely loyal to. However, there are minor league teams, so you can still get your fix for baseball. There's the Hillsboro Hops, which is a minor league affiliate for the Arizona Diamondbacks. There's the Portland Winterhawks, which is a junior ice hockey team. They play at the same place that the Trailblazers play in. So in general, if you really need to see a football game or a professional baseball game, you can drive 3 hours to the north up to Seattle and catch a Seahawks game or the Mariners. But here in Portland, you're just kind of stuck with the Portland Pickles, Portland Trailblazers, or the good old Hillsboro Hops. They're always fun to go to though. Another thing is that a lot of the homes here were built in the early 1900s, so while most of them have been restored or remodeled, some of the foundations here are really getting up there in age. So if you're looking to be a homeowner, that's one thing that you should definitely be aware of. We always recommend getting a home inspection for any house that you're buying. So if you are getting a house that is older, you'll definitely know about any issues before you commit to owning that property. But just so you know, there's a lot of really old construction here. If you want more new construction, there's a lot more of that on the western suburbs, such as Beaverton, Hillsboro, even out in Forest Grove and Cornelius. There's tons of new developments popping up. But in Portland proper, many of the homes are really old. You're gonna have a lot of old foundations here. Just something to be aware of. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's broken. Those things were built to last, obviously, if they're still standing 100 years later. So don't worry, we got your back. All right, I think that was 8. So let's move on to the bonus one, shall we? And so if you're still watching at this point, go ahead and smash that like button so that YouTube will recommend this video to other people that might find value in it. And while you're at it, maybe even consider subscribing to the channel so that you can always stay up to date with all the new videos that I'm sharing about Portland. Now, as a bonus, I'll just tell you, Portland is weird. Anything goes. There's even a saying that says, keep Portland weird. And while it's nuanced and, you can live a perfectly normal life, whatever that means to you, it's definitely true in some ways. I'll try to stay politically correct here, but you can basically be anyone or anything that you want to be here in Portland. So if you don't have much of a tolerance for originality and free speech, or being around people who aren't afraid to be their entire and true selves, no matter what that means, then I don't know, you might have some issues living here. So don't come to Portland unless you've got an open mind and are willing to be accepting of other people. All right, if you found this video interesting, then the next one that you should watch is this one right here, where I talk about the 5 reasons you should move to Portland. We'll see you there.